Welcome to the Pot of Gold podcast, where we talk about finances, wealth generation, and real estate investing. Today on the show, I have Stefanie Blackburn, who is one of the founders of CPI Transactions, a company she co-owns with her husband, Ian Blackburn. Together, they specialize in providing transactional funding and short-term private money solutions for real estate investors, with real estate experience dating back to before 2008, including wholesaling, subject to deals, lease options, and short sales. Stefanie brings a hands-on understanding of the industry. Under their leadership, CPI Transactions has successfully placed over $8 million in capital, helping investors close deals quickly while delivering strong returns for their funding partners. You know, Stefanie, it's such a pleasure to have you on the show today.
Well, thank you, Nathaniel. I really appreciate it.
It's definitely my pleasure. I know we've known each other for quite a while. We had some fun experiences over at Squad Up Summit, but I get really excited to just kind of understand a little bit more about your story and how you got started in all of this. And maybe we can start there. What led you to choose what you are doing right now?
Definitely. Well, as noted in my background, I had previous experience pre-2008. I have to be totally honest with you, probably 2009, 2010, we kind of sat on the sidelines and waited a while before we did anything else in real estate. And a few years back, we kind of got intrigued on the money side. We saw some opportunities to jump in and learn a little bit more about the private money side versus, actually doing the fix and flip and lease options and short sales. So we jumped into that and we kind of found ourselves in the trajectory to be doing the private money side. So we would do short-term gap. A lot of it were second positions. And then we've kind of pivoted into doing, more first positions along with the second positions and also transactional funding. And it's been a great experience. I mean, one thing that we really enjoy about it is being able to partner with those that have a lot of capital sitting on the sides that they want to put into motion. So we have built up a really good network of funding partners, and we're always looking for more people that, want to invest their funds and they want to earn more than what they're getting in the bank, but don't know how to do it. So that is kind of how CPI started, and we're continuing to grow. We're also now offering short-term transactional funding, for basically double closes, the stack method, things like that.
Very cool. Well, and that's there's definitely a need for that. I know you said you did a lot of the second position loans. I know that quite a few lenders in the industry kind of shy away from those. So what was that something that you were able to do?
I mean, obviously we prefer first, but we have been able to do seconds. In a lot of cases, there's two things that we look at. One, we look at, maybe more than two. We look at the strength of the borrower. Do they have experience? Have they done these type of projects before? Have they been successful? Have they paid back their private money lenders? We also look at the property, the collateral that they have there. Is it something that we feel that they're easily going to be able to refinance or sell? Do we need to add collateral property? So sometimes, you may have a great deal, but it's a little tight. So we'll often ask, what other properties do you have that we can use as security? So that way, if things don't go quite as planned, there are additional properties that can be used in case something goes wrong, and we can use those. We don't always use collateral properties. It just really depends on the situation. It depends on, the numbers and what we're seeing in the market there.
Okay.
But it's been good. I mean, we have a handful of repeat borrowers that we work with on a regular basis that their strategy is to buy a large amount of properties. And so we work hand in hand with them and then their back-end mortgage lender so that we can quickly cash them out.
Got it. Well, and just kind of go over collateral a little bit for those who might be listening. The best way for me to understand it when I was first learning about collateral was my experience with bowling alleys. Because when I go to a bowling alley, I would rent out bowling shoes. Okay. And in order to get those bowling shoes for the night, they would ask me to either give me or give them my pair of shoes or my driver's license or some other type of article that was a personal belonging, in order to make sure that I brought those shoes back. And so they were holding collateral for the bowling shoes. And so we do the exact same thing when securing a loan for real estate. It's just at a much larger scale.
I love that analogy. I think that that helps make it simple for people. Yes, they have to give something of value that we can say, if you don't pay this back, we can take this.
Well, that's very cool. I imagine that it wasn't all just rainbows and easy street, though. Have you had any kind of problems with getting this set up? Did you have any kind of mindset problems? What was the story
Um,
with that?
that's a great question. Yeah, at first when we started jumping into it, our first thing was we started having opportunities come across our desk and we're like, well, we don't have the capital to be able to do this. And so it was really a mindset shift of how can we partner with others and, create a win-win. And so that was the approach that we took there. So that was a big mindset. And then there's been challenges, learning curve, so there's been a lot of great resources that we've come across and, talking with great title companies, talking with others that have been doing this for longer has really helped provide us some good insights. And then, just pushing forward. I mean, we're constantly adapting our systems to ensure that okay, we find it, well, this process doesn't work quite the way that we anticipated. So tweaking that. And yeah, there has been challenges and problems. And for us, we try to attack those head on, look at them as a growing opportunity and different ways of finding solutions to challenges.
I really like that. I think the way you look at things actually changes the way you get to approach them.
100%.
Because if you're being pessimistic all the time, well, then you're already kind of half defeated because you're saying, well, there's no solution because I can't see it. But if you're optimistic, then you're actually looking for solutions. And often those things present themselves as you put your effort forward.
I agree with that 100% because I'd say 3 years ago, I don't know if I would be open to some of the different creative solutions that we've been able to come up with to make something happen.
Well, I like that. It just shows that you've been able to grow over the last 3 years. That's really awesome.
Thank you.
Was there a point in time where you're like, this is too hard? Do we really want to do this, or should we change to something else?
It's a good question. I mean, there has been times that it's like, oh my gosh, there's so much. This is a lot. But I think that both myself and my husband have a passion for this. So it's just been like, okay, let's take a step back. Let's maybe pause a little bit and see what needs to change to improve it and jump to that next level.
That's very cool. I think it's important for people to remember that the only way you really fail is if you decide to give up.
Yes, and I think we forget that often.
Well, and I think Tim Story was the man who spoke at Sweat Up Summit, and he talked about how our culture kind of has this mentality of expecting the reward at the start of the journey instead of at the end. And it's important to remember that you have to go through the entirety of the quest before you get to the cave full of treasure.
Yes, I agree. And he really spoke to me when I heard him speak. I mean, he has a great message, and people like that are very valuable to, myself, yourself, as we're building our business.
It's kind of like, I don't know, the very first person that I heard that changed my mindset to a very significant degree was Mel Robbins, who went to, I think it was the Own Your Future event with Tony Robbins.
Okay.
And I heard her speak, and she said, it's okay to do it imperfectly, to do it messy, and to do it scared. Just do it anyway. And it's like that was the permission I needed to not be obsessed with perfectionism.
I like that. I really like her, her 5-minute rule and things like that. And that is a good point. I mean, I think, and I've done it too, you want things to be perfect before you go forward.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because once I joined the real estate investing community Gator with Pace Morby, I finally got out of the analysis paralysis I'd had for like 4 years because I was looking to buy a house. I didn't have an understanding of doing it anything other than traditionally, but I had it in my mind that I had to save up 20% for a down payment because I did not want to pay private mortgage insurance for any reason. And now looking back at that, that was a silly reason not to get into the market when I could have, because my current private mortgage insurance is something like $32 a month. And if I would have just did it back when I was first looking, I'd have a 2.5% interest rate instead of an almost 7% interest rate, right? So lessons learned, but it's interesting because it gave me the confidence that I needed to just take the action and move things forward.
I think when we first talked, you were in that process right there of looking to buy a house.
Yep.
So I know for us, knowing the money side now has shifted how we look at the acquisition side 100%.
Definitely. And the fact that I've understood now that I have this equity that's built up even since we bought it last December, December before last. And so now I can take that money that gets built up in the equity, and later on we can upgrade to a bigger house because we have a bigger down payment, and it can transfer from one property to another. And I didn't understand that before.
That's one thing that we have found, and I'm sure you will too, is with real estate, it's like there's always different ways of doing things. And like you said, I mean, you can increase your lifestyle without really increasing your outlay by doing it the way you mentioned.
But it takes a lot of mistakes to get along that path. If you're not taking action, you're not making the mistakes, you're not making the progress.
I agree with that. I mean, and we've made mistakes along the way over the years, and you are 100%. You have to look at a mistake as a learning opportunity.
Well, and some of my personal experiences were rather traumatic. And it's only been recently that I've realized that despite how terrible they were, I made it through to the other side intact. And so I have the opportunity to go out and do things again, and maybe they're scary, maybe they involve pain sometimes, but everything that I have experienced in the past, I have made through to the other side, and that's going to continue until it doesn't. So there's no use barring anxiety.
I like that. I mean, and you are right. I mean, but you have to get through it. I mean, if there's challenges, it's how you attack them and get through them.
Definitely. Well, I think that's a good point to switch on to what do you expect the future for your company to look like?
Well, right now, I mean, we're doing more transactional funding. So the short term, quick, and that works great for people that have wholesalers are a good example of who that works for. I mean, they're buying a property and then they're reselling it immediately for a profit. So we will typically come in and provide them that funding to purchase, and then they turn around and resell it. So that's one thing we're doing a lot of. But we also want to get where we are, working with a really good set of funding partners that we're turning their money quickly. We have been branching out, working with a few new investors/borrowers that are doing, big buckets of acquisitions, I guess would be the best way to describe it. And we're able to turn that money in 30 to 45 days. So
okay,
it's a really good way for somebody to, start putting their money to work. So I think we're going to be focusing, more on the transactional and then those types of transactions so that we are able to, take more people that, hey, I've got this money that's from, a house sale, or, I've been saving and I want to make more than what I'm making in the bank. And so we would like to plug those people into these opportunities so that they are able to get a good return. For us, we do a lot of what I would say connecting or co-lending, partnering with our funding partners, but we also are deploying capital on our end as well.
So there's a couple of things you mentioned that I'd like to kind of clarify for the audience. What's the difference between transactional lending and, say, lending on second, first position liens?
Perfect. So with transactional, I've heard people look at transactional differently because I've heard people say, oh, I need transactional, but I need it for 30 days. Okay. For us, we don't consider that transactional. Transactional is typically 24 hours, maybe 48 hours. It's very quick. Basically, your money goes to title, your money stays in title, and then your money comes back to you.
Yeah, so that's a really good way to put it, I think. I've heard it explained. Anything that happens before and up to the close of escrow.
That makes sense. Yep, because your funds typically come back before escrow is completely closed out. So those, obviously they don't pay as high of a return as going into a private money loan, but they're fast. And we've had people work with us on those where we're doing a couple of those a week with them. So they're making, little chunks here and there all throughout the week. So that's a good thing. private money, usually you've got a longer term, anywhere from 30 days to 6 months is typically where we stay. We don't like to go over 6 months, and that is actually secured with a lien on the property.
Got it. And that's just basically saying that if for some reason this loan isn't paid out, you have the opportunity to go after the asset to recuperate your losses, like we talked about with the collateral.
100%.
Okay, the other thing that I'd like to mention is the Rule of 72. It's a mathematical principle that basically tells you how long it's going to take for you to double your money at a specific interest rate. And it also ties into the velocity of money, and those are the kinds of things that you're able to accelerate with things like transactional funding, because people can turn their money over and over again in a shorter period of time.
100%.
Very cool. I like the fact that you're finding more steady borrowers and lenders, and then you're able to churn that money for people and make them a profit.
Yeah, it's been enjoyable for us. I mean, one thing that we are finding is we always vet the borrower as best as we can, deep research, making sure we do a face-to-face Zoom, looking at past experience, any references, anything we can find. And I'm sure you're digging into some AI tools, but we're finding with the use of AI, it also helps quite a bit to be able to dive into their background and find things faster as well.
Okay, that's interesting. I hadn't considered that as a use case for AI. But the thing about AI is that as long as you can think up something, it probably can perform pretty well on the thing that you've thought up.
Yes, 100%.
Very neat. I like that. I'll have to write that down and look into that more myself. My operations manager, who I just hired, has been helping me put my systems and processes together, so that will be an exciting thing to go over with her.
Yeah, that's one thing I want to catch up with you on is how that's going, because I think last time we talked, you were just getting ready to submit the offer.
Yep, she accepted that offer, and we have been basically getting everything onboarded over the last week and a half, 2 weeks now. And so we've got a CRM basically put together. We've got some basic processes. I just got to have more deal flow going to the email that we set up for deal submissions, and I'm just filling out some of the details for some of my contacts, because I have half the information for some people and the other half for other people, and just trying to organize everything.
No, that makes sense. Totally makes sense. So,
but I'm excited. It's the first time I've ever hired somebody, so that was a brand new experience. I actually had a period of about a week or so where I wrestled with it for a good while. I was like, do I really want to take this step? This is kind of scary. I don't know if I'm responsible enough to be able to show up for a person that's going to be relying on me for some of their income. But ultimately, I came to the decision that I needed to do it because I read a quote that says, there are going to be pivotal moments in your life where you know you're going in the right direction because the only thing you can think of is running the opposite direction as fast as you can.
I like that.
And so I realized, okay, that means I got to double down. And it made me remember all these terrible things that I've gone through. I made it through to the other side. So even if this doesn't end up going well, I'll have learned from it and I'll be okay. I won't be starting from zero experience. I can never again say that I've never hired someone.
Exactly. 100%.
So that's a line I've never crossed before, but there's also a line you never go back from.
Well, I'm very proud of you for taking that step and doing that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. This whole community has been really supportive for me, and it's helped me a lot with my personal development. So I appreciate your support too. I really do.
Well, from the first time that we met till now, I've seen you grow a ton, and it's neat to watch your journey.
It's really useful, and this is useful for the audience as well, to realize that when you're feeling down or you're not sure why you're doing something, to look back on the progress you've made instead of worrying about where you're not yet. I learned that from a book I read, I think it was Dan Sullivan, called The Gap and the Gain. You look back at the gain instead of worrying about the gap between where you're at and where you want to be.
I think that's something we all need to keep in mind more often than we do.
Definitely. Well, cool. I'm kind of curious, what would you recommend for people who are just getting started? I mean, the whole reason I'm doing this podcast is to try to help people learn from other entrepreneurs like yourself, so that they eventually can become an entrepreneur full-time and leave their W-2 job.
100%. I think for me, I would say don't be afraid to ask questions. And I would also say don't be afraid to reach out to others and see if you can partner up with them. There's been a handful of people that we have come across in our path that have reached out to ask about that. We've been able to structure some really nice situations where we benefit them and they benefit us. And so definitely would do that. If you're jumping into real estate and you're not sure where to go, sometimes learning about the money side first, I think is a good thing, because then you set yourself up to be able to know that, okay, if I find a good deal, I know the money side. I know how to go and get my deals funded. So those are some things that I would look at, and just constantly be learning, constantly be looking at other people that you can learn from as well.
Those are both excellent suggestions. Would you also say that there's a place that would be good for them to start, for maybe like resources, books, podcasts?
Obviously, both you and I follow a lot of what Pace Morby puts out there. He has a really good free Facebook group, which is a good starter place to connect and meet others that are doing some of the things that you want to do. So that would be one place. But I would also kind of say, look at your mindset. I know that for many people, that's probably the first place you should start, is getting over the limiting beliefs that you can grow and you can do this. I mean, you can jump into real estate, whether it's buying and selling properties or holding properties or putting your capital to work, earning a return.
Excellent advice there, Stefanie. I think the mindset was definitely where I had to start, because for a long time I struggled with self-worth, and it wasn't until I realized that there was a mechanism that we use in our everyday life called suspension of disbelief. So what we use to be able to watch fictional stories, and I realized I could hijack that to convince myself that I was a person worthy of love and respect. And that was the very first step, because before I took that step, I wasn't even able to give myself permission to even go out and try to do things, because I didn't think I deserved it. And so that's something that other people can use. They can change the way their mindset works. And it's actually a physiological thing, because as you experience the way a different person would act, your brain starts to pick up the new reality, and it basically creates what are called channels of myelin.
Okay.
And so it starts to understand the different habits and patterns, and it becomes easier over time. It's just a matter of consistency and acting the way you like to be in your life.
I love that.
But
that is really good.
I didn't know that when I first started. So it's something that I had to kind of come to terms with over time.
I would love, my suggestion to you is that you share a little bit more about that with your audience, because I think that is very powerful.
Yeah, it's been transformative. It's just, it all comes down to action. You have to get around the fear just by wading through it, and it's not something that's easy, but it's definitely what's required. I don't know any other way to do it. Maybe there are other ways to do it, but that's what's worked for me.
It sounds powerful. I think that is a good way to approach it.
Well, I definitely recommend it to anybody who is looking to try to get around their own limited mindsets and beliefs. And I'm not saying that I'm over all of mine either. I just have found a way to start making the progress that we're all looking for.
It's amazing.
Where would people go to connect with you?
There's a couple of ways you can do that. One, our website for CPI Transactions is cpitransactions.com. We do have a link on there. If you want to become a funding partner, you can submit there and share your information, and then we can try to match you with any of our great projects that come out that we need funding for. My social media handle personally that I'm working on is the Stefanie Blackburn, and Stefanie is with an F instead of a PH, so it's spelled slightly different than the typical.
Stefanie instead of a Y, right?
Correct. So you just swap out the PH for an F. And then CPI Transactions is our handle across other social media for our business.
And is there anything else you'd like to share with the audience before we end the interview?
I think all I would say is just, don't be afraid to get started in something. If you have an idea, kind of a passion to do something, just don't be afraid to jump in and start doing it.
The cool thing is you're not alone. There are other people that are doing the same thing. You just have to connect with them, and you're going to get the support you need. You just have to go out there and make the connections.
100%.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. This has been the Pot of Gold podcast, where we talk about wealth generation, finances, and real estate investing. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Thank you.